What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. We're joined with the special guest, Quincy Bell Sports. We're going to be recapping some of the most intriguing matchups of week 2 of the 2023 college football season, man. Let's start off with Alabama, Texas, man. Texas pulled off the unthinkable. They upset Alabama on the road, then Tuscaloosa 34-24. And did you know that Nick Saban, prior to this loss, only had lost what, 7, 8 games in his whole entire career coaching in Alabama prior to Texas beating them, Quincy?
Yeah, man. I mean, I saw a little graphic that said there were like only a handful of teams that have actually beat Nick Saban at home, and it was like a bunch. It was like a few teams from like his first year in 2007, and then it was like Ole Miss 1 year, Georgia 1 year, like and A&M with Manziel, and now Texas. That's like all that it was.
Yeah, then recently the 2019 LSU team, man, when you
Oh
look
yeah.
at Texas' performance, what really stood out to you? Did they look like the far more superior team than Alabama, or do you think that it was an all-around good game? Texas just was better than Alabama in certain portions.
I I picked Texas to win this game actually. In my weekly picks. I really thought they could do it, and a lot of people didn't think that they could. My philosophy was I said Bama will be better in the trenches, but Texas's like skill players on the outside are I think better than like Bama's secondary, and I thought Quinn Ewers was the way better quarterback, which is like this is not to like dog on Jalen Milroe. He did not have a good game. It felt like he was like getting the ball and just immediately wanted to run. And if he had to make like if he had to make like a second read, he like didn't know what to do. So I just was really disappointed in Jalen Milroe, I guess. But it was still a really good game. And he made some really good passes, but Quinn Ewers, he's that guy. And Xavier Worthy, I said Xavier Worthy coming into the season would be the best receiver in college football because he is that good. I don't know if he'll actually be the best or the first receiver taken in the draft, but he is a dog and he caught some really good passes. And I mean, as soon as Texas got that pick near the end and made it a 2-score lead, I mean, they kind of just held on. It was still a really good game,
I think the biggest difference maker at receiver for Texas to me was A.D. Mitchell. I mean,
He had a good game too.
the way the whole entire receiving core of Texas was destroying Alabama's secondary. And I was a little bit surprised at how dominant Texas just looked offensively. They just looked so fluid. Alabama's defense hasn't really gotten better. As a matter of fact, would you say that it kind of has taken a step back? Because, yeah, at one end, we got to give credit to Texas having just a stacked offense. But Alabama defensively, I haven't seen them get dogged like that in a while, since LSU.
I mean, I don't think Bama's defense did like through the first half of this game, it was pretty much a defensive kind of battle. I mean, 13-6 at half. I thought Bama's defense held up for a while. It's just their offense, I thought, like couldn't get enough going, and they were kind of left on the field for a while. Texas did win the time of possession battle. I wouldn't be siring. I wouldn't be panicking about Bama's defense because ultimately, I mean, they've given up more than 34 points before. I would tend to blame this loss more on Bama's offense than I would their defense because I felt like they kicked way too many field goals. Like it was 13-9 in the third quarter. Very easily could have been 13-21 if they converted all those to touchdowns. I wouldn't blame this game on Bama's defense because for a lot of the game, I thought they held up pretty well. Like the play that made it a 2-score lead for Texas was because Milroe threw a pick and they started the drive on their 5-yard line. So I wouldn't really blame this on Bama's defense. I would say their offense is going to need to pick up the slack.
How do you feel about Jalen Milroe going forward? Because for me, when I looked at Jalen Milroe, there was a portion of this game I was like, okay, you got to take this dude out. But then when I was saying, okay, they got to take this dude out, the fool comes back in the game and throws a touchdown. And it's a one possession game. And you're like, okay, Jalen, like, I see you. And there were some plays where he was looking unstoppable with his legs, and especially on third down. Do you think Texas defense is just that good, or should Bama like kind of open back up the quarterback competition again? Because he did look awful. He did make some plays.
Yeah, he made some plays. I will say, Texas's defense played a lot better than I thought they would. I didn't think Texas would win this game because of their defense, but through portions of that, they were bigger up front and stopped some of Bama's runs a lot better than I thought they would. I wouldn't try to go switching quarterbacks. I mean, I'm not really sure who Bama has after Jalen Milroe, but I'm sure this is something he can figure out. I wouldn't be totally panicking about the quarterback situation for Bama, because Bama's upcoming schedule, they have some easy kind of games to kind of get him back in the swing of things. They play South Florida, and then they play Ole Miss. Might not be that easy of a game, but I mean, really their next really hard game is home against Tennessee. So, which, by the way, Tennessee did not look very good last week, but it is what it is. I think they should just stick with him. I don't think if he didn't turn it around, if he just kept playing terribly like he did the first half, I would maybe consider it. But he definitely played a lot better in the second half, to where I would have confidence with him going forward.
This win for Texas makes them legit. I tried to say legitimize, but however you say it, this makes them legit in terms of where you view them as a championship contender. You probably might have viewed them as a fringe playoff team. Now you got to look at this team as a legit team, the same way that you're looking at Florida State. I know it's crazy that some of these blue blood programs are finally starting to come back to the forefront of college football. Texas, they went on the road and beat Alabama. Nobody beats Alabama on the road being a crappy team. It's not fluke. Like, you got to be a damn good team to beat Alabama, no matter if it's a down year or their best year. And for Texas moving forward, you done beat the toughest team on your schedule. Now you got to run through the gauntlet that is the Big 12. They got Kansas coming up. I think that'll be tough. They got Oklahoma, still not really that high on them, but I think for Texas, I'm not going to say they're officially back because it's only week 2. It seems a little bit too early to declare that, but I definitely think that Texas, with this win, has proved that they were worth every inch of the hype that they received during this offseason, and they do have one of college football's best rosters.
They have a squad. They have a really good team, and they're definitely the favorites to win the Big 12. I know a lot of people might not have thought that at the start of the year, but I think they're back. You don't go and beat Alabama on the road, and they looked like it wasn't like they got this happened. They were the better team. Like, there's no question about it. They were the better team, and if you look at their schedule, it's pretty easy the rest of the way. I mean, the only games I can maybe see them losing are Kansas State, TCU. I don't think anybody else on their schedule.
This was the weirdest game of week 2, man. Utah escaped Baylor 20-13, and they were a 7.5 point favorite going into this game. Baylor, they were down their starting quarterback, and Baylor lost to Texas State last week. So going into this game, it would easily look like Utah was going to run away with this thing, but Baylor got on these boys fast in the first half, and then in the second half, I don't know what the hell happened to Dave Aranda's squad. They didn't really look all that buttoned up, and they just fell apart. Man.
I will say Dave Aranda's seat might be hotter than anyone's in college football, because Baylor has now lost, dating back to last year, they have now lost their last 5 games. 2 this year. They lost their bowl game to, I think, like Air Force or something. Baylor didn't look awful week 1 against Texas State. And I feel like you could kind of tell throughout this game, they spent all of week 1 preparing for Utah instead of Texas State, because they came out with, I thought, a great game, especially defensively. That's something Dave Aranda is normally pretty good at, is organizing a defensive game plan. But I don't know. I mean, Utah, Cam Rising obviously is their number one QB. He's hurt right now. I don't really know when he's supposed to be back, but their backup Barnes played great against Florida. He lit up Florida, and he could not do anything this game. At one point, I think he was like 5. He finished the game 6 of 19 for 71 yards. That's bad. And then they put in Nate Johnson, their third string technically, who's he was like a state champion track runner in Oregon last year as a high school. He's a true freshman. They put him in, and I mean, he did okay, 6 of 7 for 82 yards. And then they threw in like Jaquindon Jackson near the end of the game. They were just having him like run out of the Wildcat. It's like I didn't get what they were doing. Like it felt like they were just like using a new quarterback like every play. They were doing that against Florida too.
They were finding ways to win without their starting QB. And to their credit, you have to look at Baylor and get mad at them for not being able to put the game away when they needed to, and even at the end. Their quarterback threw an interception that put Utah in position.
That might have been the worst pass I've seen in the last like 5 years of college football. It wasn't even like he got hit as he threw. He just threw a duck like right over the middle of the field.
And be honest, Quincy, when you saw him when you were watching that game at that point, you kind of knew the momentum was starting to twirl Utah's way. And I kind of had a feeling, you can kind of get a feeling when you know the opposing team's quarterback is about to do some duck shit. And I just knew he was about to do some dumb shit.
I'll give you a fun stat. Before Utah's last drive of the game, the drive where they like completed the long pass and almost tied it, before that drive, they had 4 total yards in the fourth quarter. They had 4 yards. How are you a power? I don't care who you're playing. How are you a Power 5 team getting 4 yards in a quarter?
That's Utah. But you know, like that's the kind of style of football Utah plays. Like they don't care about it being pretty. Kyle Whittingham and those boys, like they find ways to win games that they have no business winning. When they beat Oregon twice that one season, Mario Cristobal's last year, and then they beat USC twice, I believe, last year. Like they got up with them because they got scrappy, they got physical, and Baylor, they kind of have a similar identity. It's just that, you know, the offense just was severely lacking, or the quarterback play was severely lacking. I really think this was the kind of game that Kyle Whittingham and those boys kind of expected.
Yeah, I mean, Utah's extremely well coached. Kyle Whittingham is a great coach. That he's probably one of the top 10 coaches in college football. He is a really good coach. I mean, I think when Utah gets Cam Rising back, I don't know when that'll be, but if they do, they're going to be really tough to beat, because this is an experienced Utah team that has won the Pac-12 the last 2 years. They have most of that same crew back for this third year. So, I mean, I would say they're the favorites to win the Pac-12 when Cam Rising gets back. And their upcoming schedule, they have Weber State and UCLA. Those should be 2 games they can probably relax for. And then they're at Oregon State. That'll be a fun game.
Baylor, Dave Aranda, I don't think the hot seat is really heating up for him, at least right now, because he did just lead them to a Big 12 championship in 2021. I think he can afford one down year. I think next year will probably be a year he'll have to start picking some things back up. I just think with the quarterback situation, even their starter, Blake Sharpen or Shapen, he wasn't even...
A lot of Baylor fans don't like him.
Yeah, like I think they definitely got to hit the portal hard this offseason and try to come away with one of the best quarterbacks out of that mug, because if they can't keep going through the Big 12 with just having great defense and okay quarterback play, they need to go ahead and go and get a baller. Coach Prime and the Buffs keep on rolling. They made easy work of Nebraska 36-14 in their home opener. And it's funny how not a lot of people are talking about how Deion Sanders has just made history. In less than a year, he's already doubled Colorado's win total. This team only won one damn game last year, and they already have won two in their first two games. They beat TCU, who not too many people saw that shit coming. And then, even then, people thought that Nebraska was going to be able to run the football at will, which they were at times, and give Nebraska the win. But Colorado, for the most part, their defense played really well. They hung in there, and Jeff Sims, whew, Matt Rule. But starting off with Colorado, I think that Colorado is a legit team. I've been saying this all off season. They're a top 25 team, and people severely underrated the talent on this Colorado roster. It's like they don't got a lot of depth, but they got enough difference makers such as Shadur, Travis Hunter, Xavier Weaver, Jimmy Horn Jr., and solid players in the secondary that unless you got some of those difference makers on your team, you're not really going to be able to beat them. Now, when they play Oregon and USC, that's going to be a different story because those guys have their own versions of Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders and whatnot. They have the same amount of blue chip players, if not more. But I'm looking at Deion Sanders, the fact that they made easy work in Nebraska. I think people need to start really taking this team seriously, at least a top 25 team. They're in the top 25, but people still are kind of doubting this team. They don't believe.
Well, I know you've been real high on Colorado the whole season. I was one of those people that was like, yeah, they'll get 4 wins. I did not think they would be legit because I was like, all right, they're bringing in a bunch of people from Jackson State and from where Deion was. And I'm like, all right, they might be okay. But I'm like, they're probably not going to be up to the talent of like these teams. I was like, give him a year and let him get some more recruits. And I was like, then he'll probably be pretty good. I'm like, first year, probably not. But they're legit, man. They are definitely just. I mean, they're a lot better on, especially defense than I thought they were. I know because a lot of people were like, "Oh, they beat TCU, gave up 42 points," but this is a TCU team that will score often. That's a TCU team that has a really good offense. But I mean, their defense was clamped the hell out of Nebraska. They could barely move the ball, other than that big run by Jeff Sims to start the third quarter. They didn't do anything on offense. I think this Colorado team is going to be dangerous coming forward. Now they have 2 tough games coming up. They play Oregon, USC back to back. After they play Colorado State next week, which they'll blow them up by probably 40. And then they got Oregon and USC after that. That'll really be the true test, but I definitely think they're up to the challenge. Shadur Sanders was making some crazy plays that I don't think a lot of quarterbacks in college football are making. And I mean, Travis Hunter played on both sides of the ball. They got speed, and I think they can hang with pretty much anyone. I didn't realize how much roster turnover they actually had because I was like, this team won 1 game last year. Basically, their whole team's like people from that 1-win team. I don't even know if like there's any of them that are, if they're left, they're not getting playing time. So definitely do not sleep on Colorado the way I was in the offseason because I thought they'd be bad, and they are definitely a force to be reckoned with.
For Nebraska, this team does not look good. They don't have much talent on offense. They don't got a good offensive line. We were talking about Colorado's offensive line being a concern going into this season. Nebraska's offensive line, when it comes to pass blocking, don't even ask. I mean, goodness. And then Jeff Sims, my brother from the 904, they should have took him out. But it's like when they were thinking about taking him out, he made a big play. But at the end of the day, you're not going to win too many games. I don't know what the hell it is about these Big Ten teams. They either have a lead defense and absolutely zero offense, or they got a mid or slightly above average offense with no defense. And with Matt Rule, we know he's known for being a rebuilder. Some people thought that maybe with the new age of college football that he's walking into with the transfer portal on NIL, he could maybe get this thing rolling in year 1. But he's never really been somebody to make it happen in year 1. He's always been a multi-year guy. And with Deion Sanders, it just puts so much pressure on a guy like Matt Rule that, people are going to be expecting results immediately. But Jeff Sims is not it at QB, and I don't think the backup they have is it either. it's just going to be a really tough season for them. I think, for Nebraska, your defense will keep you in games, but the only way you can really win is if you run the hell out of Jeff Sims and the other running backs that they have. That's about it.
I felt really bad for Jeff Sims during that game because I thought he was going to die during that game. He got no blocking from his own. Dude, his O-line hung him out to dry. Every time he would even try to run a little bit, I'm like, someone from Colorado's going to, I'm like, Travis Hunter's going to take his head off. I will give credit to Jeff Sims for at least sticking through that game because, yeah, he played bad. Really wasn't all his fault. He got no help from his team, but he's
a
not.
Deer headlights out there, man. He's a deer headlights out there. They might as well have just went Wildcat or QB power every play. You got to bet their best drives came when they had big runs versus big passes. That's bad.
Yeah, the Nebraska ain't it. And I will tell you, I got a buddy that goes to Northern Illinois. He's licking his chops about that game next year. Illinois. I'm telling you right now, Northern Illinois is usually one of the better group of 5 teams. If you're looking for an upset week 3, take the Huskies.
The Canes, oh my goodness, man. You can either look at Miami as a team that's on the up and up, winning 48-33, or you think Texas A&M is about to implode. Which one is it, Quincy? Are the Miami Hurricanes a legit team, 48-33, or is Texas?
You know what I think about this. You know what I think. A&M is garbage. I've been saying this. I was so upset. I've been so upset watching Texas A&M because last year, they had the best recruiting class in the history of college football ever. Best recruiting class ever. And they won 5 games because they don't know how, because Jimbo Fisher didn't know how to run an offense. They had a mid quarterback and they just couldn't do anything. And then half their teams leave for the transfer portal, half those really good players. And they're ranked again? What? I was so shocked that they were even ranked again because they were so bad last year. But even then, I still thought they would beat Miami because I know you're a big Miami guy, but Miami was also really bad last year. And I didn't think they would be much better this year, but A&M's in the gutter, dude. They've been spending too much. They're spending all this NIL money and they can't even get good. They're getting passed up by Texas.
Can we say this? I don't want to take away from Miami's win because this was a really big win. I mean, at least Texas A&M had an offense. It's just like, damn, where's the defense? You feel me? Like Miami, Tyler Van Dyke. You remember the 2021 version of Tyler Van Dyke that came in when De'Aaron King got injured? He's back, baby. He might be back in that first round conversation. 5 touchdowns against one of the better secondaries in college football. Like, I think the changes that Mario Cristobal made on this staff, bringing in Shannon Dawson to be his new offensive coordinator, implementing an air raid offense. You got to remember, Mario Cristobal has always been one of those old school coaches. He want to win with hard-nosed football, great offensive line play, great run game, F the pass game, only throw the football when need be. But now it's like he's now starting to update his philosophy to a more modern approach. And I think we definitely saw that hire of Shannon Dawson paying off big time. Texas A&M's offense, Connor Wigman, I was a little bit disappointed with what I saw out of him. This definitely wasn't one of his best performances, even though he was good at times. But, I just think this offense was okay. I think that is definitely better than what they did last year. Even the loss, you scored 33 points. You were barely cracking over 20.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just 2 completely different teams. So last year, they were all defense, no offense. Because a lot of those top recruiting class ever, a lot of those players were on the defensive side of the ball. And now all of them transferred. And now they're all offense, no defense. So, I mean, like they A&M bought in.
Got a great defensive line, though. Like, you got Walter Nolan, Shamar Turner.
I'll tell you right now, A&M is about to be ready for some dark years ahead. I am definitely in panic mode if I'm Texas A&M, because first of all, they're not gonna. They were the only team that didn't want Texas in the SEC because they knew Texas was going to take all their recruits. Because the reason A&M was able to out recruit Texas is because they could sell the idea of playing in the SEC and living in Texas. And now they can't do that, at least not as the top team, because they're traditionally better than A&M. If they both have that going for them, Texas is going to get the better recruits, not A&M. But I mean, I was just so surprised they were even ranked this year. But I'll talk about Miami. This is a good win for Miami. If they could build upon this with some more wins against good teams, because their schedule actually looks pretty favorable. They have Bethune-Cookman, Temple, Georgia Tech next. That's 3 wins. And then they're at UNC, which with the way UNC played last week, or with the way UNC played this week, they needed double overtime to beat App State. That's a game Miami could win. Clemson, don't get me started on Clemson. We can talk about Clemson later.
Oh yeah, we're about to talk about them.
We'll talk about Clemson. And then like Virginia, NC State, their Super Bowl is at Florida State. They got to come ready to play that game because Florida State embarrassed them last year. It was like, what was it, like 45-3 or something? They embarrassed them last year. So Miami better get ready for that game. But they have some games against some not so great opponents to where they could maybe build up there. But
okay, so how about this? Who do you think is the biggest threat to win the ACC from Clemson? Florida State, well, outside of FSU, Duke or Miami?
I know you're not gonna like this. I'm gonna say Duke. Duke is really good.
They look good.
I was like the only. Did you for week 1? Did you pick Duke to beat Clemson?
Yes, I did. Well, no, I picked Duke to cover. But I picked Clemson to win outright.
Okay, I picked Duke to win outright. I've been big on Duke this year. I think Duke is definitely going to be a really good team this year because they didn't beat Clemson. They embarrassed Clemson. They made Clemson never want to come back to whatever.
I'll say Miami has a better roster than Duke, but Duke is so much better coach. You can tell because they don't really have too many games that come close where they should have blown out the team they were playing. Like they beat the teams they're supposed to beat pretty handily, and they get up for the big game. So in terms of who I think has the advantage right now, I would say Duke over Miami slightly, but I think Miami, if they continue to play consistently and they continue to, not underperform the teams they have no business underperforming against, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Miami in the ACC championship game against FSU.
Well, that's something Miami hasn't done in their history since the ACC divisions were formed. Like since they joined the ACC, they've never made an ACC title.
We made it once against Clemson. That 1 year when Mark Rick had it going with the defense, the turnover chain, Malik Rozier. Oh.
Yeah, the jury's still out on whether Miami's a good team or not, but good. I'll give them. That's a good win, but I'll tell you right now, A&M's in trouble. They're in big trouble.
Oh man, we gotta talk about 2 more teams that might be in trouble. Oh my goodness, how the mighty have fallen. Charleston Southern was giving Clemson a little bit of a ball game in the first half. People thought we wasn't finna pay attention. We were just finna overlook and not key in after they lost to Duke. And then I'm looking at the halftime score against Charleston Southern. That thing is a ball game. And then they pulled away in the second half, but it still was anything from a clean win. And then Alabama loses at home to Texas. Have we seen the last of Alabama and Clemson, Quincy, as far as them being top programs in the college football landscape?
Okay, I don't think we've seen the last of Alabama. I definitely think they're still going to be a top team this year. Like they will rebound this year. I feel like they will get back to they're still in contention to win the SEC West. Like that wasn't an SEC loss. Bama will still be fine. we may have seen the last of Clemson at the top. And the main reason why is because Dabo Swinney is incredibly stubborn. Because, I don't know if you remember this, he has said repeatedly that he won't use the transfer portal. He says he won't use the transfer portal because he only wants players that are with Clemson from day one. And like I get that mindset like 7 years ago. 7 years ago, I understand that mindset. You cannot do that. You need transfer players in college football nowadays. And the reason that the reason them starting so poorly is a big concern is because I thought they would come out angry after playing so bad against Duke. I'm like, they should at least come out and just take out all their anger on Charleston Southern. And Charleston Southern is out here with 2 touchdowns and has a lead in the first quarter. That was just incredibly disappointing. And they got to play Florida State in 2 weeks. They play your FAU Owls next week. But after that, they play Florida State.
And we might give those boys a run for their money, Clemson fans. Don't sleep on the Owls. You know who we guys are ahead. Well, nah, we lost the damn Ohio Bobcats, but we got Tom Herman. One thing about Tom Herman is that he knows how to get teams up for the big game. So
I didn't know that Tom Herman was that. I had no idea that's where they have Tom
Clemson,
Herman.
you better watch out for my Owls. Florida Atlantic, winning in paradise.
I'll tell you, man, basketball season will be fun for them, but I don't know if they'll beat Clemson. But yeah, I think Florida State might. Clemson's going to have to really get up for that game against Florida State because that's going to be because Florida State looks legit. They look good.
They no receivers. I remember they used to be receiver use. Sammy Watkins, Mike Williams, Justin Ross. Damn, they have no receivers that pop out off screen to you. Nobody that really screams, oh yeah, like this is going to be the next great Clemson receiver. And they got Garrett Riley as their offensive coordinator. It looks like DJ Uyunglele actually was right.
Yeah, DJ's out there thriving at Oregon State, but like Florida State went out and played Southern Miss. They were up 52-3 on their cupcake. Clemson, I feel like, is in for a rough year because, like, here's the thing. I figured they would lose to Duke, but I was like, all right, they'll probably still be good for the rest of the year. But, I mean, they couldn't even move the ball against Duke. I would be really concerned if I'm Clemson.
Colorado has Colorado State coming up, and then after that, the true test really begins. USC and Oregon are on the docket in a couple of weeks. Colorado, from what we've seen out of them against TCU, Nebraska, they should roll Colorado State. They've showed us that they have the ability to compete with most teams because most teams don't have the kind of blue chip talent that Colorado has, such as a Shedeur Sanders or Travis Hunter. But when you're going against USC and Oregon, they have their own blue chip difference makers. They may not have a Travis Hunter, but they have players that also are 5- and 4-star guys, and they have more of them than what Colorado has. How do you see Colorado stacking up with USC and Oregon when they play? Do you think they're actually going to get throttled in those games, or do you think they can hang around like how they have with their first 2 games in TCU and Nebraska?
From what we've seen the first 2 weeks from Colorado, I think it would be pretty foolish to say that they would get blown out by Oregon and USC. I think they will definitely give both of them a run for their money. I'll say this. I think they will have a better chance against USC because it's a home game. Because I'll tell you, those Colorado fans, especially that student section, they were getting loud against Nebraska. I think that game against USC might end like 58-55. Like that's what I feel like we could be in store for that game. I think USC is better than Oregon, but I think it'll be a tough road game for Colorado going. I think they will lose at Oregon. I wouldn't be surprised though if they beat USC at home because that's a game that they will get up for, and I think there's a good chance that they win that game. I think if they can get if they win both those games, they're probably winning the Pac-12. and they if they win both those games, they'll probably go undefeated. Like their last game is at Utah. That'll be a tough game. But if they win both those games against USC and Oregon, they better be ranked in the top 5, and they better be.
Oh, they will, fam. Like the hype would be. Oh my goodness, Deion Sanders haters would be absolutely hating the world.
I think if they get a split though with those 2 games, if they just win one, lose one, they're going to be in a really good spot because their next like batch of games, Arizona State, Stanford, UCLA, Oregon State's pretty good, but then like Arizona, Washington, all their games up until the Utah game at the end of the season, they can be going into that Utah game with 1 loss.
I really believe they're going to split. I really think they can be either USC or Oregon. Who would I say? I think they got a better chance beating Oregon, even though it's on the road, because Oregon's defense is still not good. Like they were getting lit up by Texas Tech.
I figured that Texas Tech game would be pretty good because
Texas and they lost to Wyoming, by the way.
I know they lost to Wyoming, but Wyoming's not that bad, and it was also kind of a trap. That's an incredibly hard trap game. You got Oregon at home, but you got to go at Wyoming. That's a Wyoming crowd and team that will get up for that game. So I wasn't really going to dog them too much for losing to Wyoming, but Oregon was still able to come out with a win. I definitely think they'll have a better chance against USC because this is a USC defense that gave up 28 points to San Jose State. Like, I definitely think that Colorado they will have the chance to light them up, especially since it's at home. So if I had to pick between those 2, I think they would lose to Oregon. But
all right, everyone, this is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure that you leave a like, subscribe to the channel. We go live Monday through Thursday, every day, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure that you tune in. Check out our guy, Quincy Bell Sports, man. Subscribe to his YouTube channel at Quincy Bell Sports. We'll have it down in the description and the comment section down below. And Quincy, we appreciate you for coming on, man.
Appreciate it. Definitely. We got to do this again, too.